We on!
Hey, yo, what's up? It's your boy DJ Noble. Welcome to another episode of Off the Grid. I got a couple of guests with me right now, so fellas, go ahead and introduce yourself. Matter of fact, we'll just go to I don't know if what you guys see on your camera angles, but the guy in the gray sweatshirt, man. Tell us who you are.
Yo, what's going on? It's your boy Crazy One, aka Dre, for the people out there in Normal Land. I am actually I'm just a dude, man.
Just a dude.
I'm just a dude now.
I'm just a girl. My bad.
I can't even do this whole C1 radio thing anymore, man. I'm just a guy, man.
Just a guy.
I can't give you all the tea right now.
And I guess that leaves me. I'm like Dre. It's like I've done so many different things over the years and so many different programs, but I normally actually do the Tastemakers Pod Wednesday nights at 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on these YouTube streets. But we were taking a week off, and Noble asked me to jump on, so I was like, you know what? Let's do that. Let's do that.
Hey, man, I'm sorry to take your time, brother, but I'm glad you're
it's
here.
all good.
I'm glad you're here. It's been, as a matter of fact, you were my first guest on Off the Grid, 4 years ago?
Me and Goss. Was it me and Goss?
Yeah, it was you and Goss. Yeah. Yep. So, I mean, I took a little hiatus from that because I moved and I'm down here in the basement right now. I'm off the grid, kind of, sort of like. But
I see you in the unfinished.
Oh man, all I see is potential behind you, man.
Yes, sir. Yeah. Yes, sir.
There's there's some stuff going on over here, man. Got a bathroom framed up. I got a studio actually framed up. I got this space right here. I got matter of fact, right behind me is a bedroom framed up. So yeah, it's kind of off the grid right now, man. It's not being used in that way. So it's all good,
get
man.
You one of these bad boys like this.
All right, yeah. Come on through, man. Come on through, man. So show me how to put that together, man. What you got playing on your TV, man? Quote.
The wife is watching something, so it's just an added effect at the moment. I don't even know.
Netflix and chill.
Looks like The Mummy. Just to let y'all know, it is officially The Mummy. Brendan Fraser. Yeah, you know what I mean?
Okay.
That's what's up. Well, welcome to the program, fellas. And yo, we just gonna get into it, man. These are in these times and days. We've had some pretty tough topics, and one of them being politics is nothing that really people necessarily like to talk about. They like to comment on Facebook on it, but man, it was hard getting people to talk about this. Like people I knew that supported like the Democratic side of politics, Christians that are Democrats. I know there's a ton of them out there, man. I reached out to so many people. I got so many declines, man. I was like, man, we want to talk about this. Like, I knew there was some people that I was like, man, this person for sure gonna come up here, and they didn't. So I'm like, yo. So I appreciate y'all for dropping in and volunteering your time to talk about this, because I think it's important, man. Because I think as the body of Christ, man, we need to have some type of unity, but a lot of times we don't understand each other and understand each other's views and where we're coming from. So I appreciate y'all for dropping in to do that.
Cool. No, I guess it's with this cancel culture and with everything else we got going on in this world. Yeah. I guess people don't always want to put their faces to their opinions. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I mean, if you believe on it, stand 10 toes down on it. That's what I say.
That's it. Yes. That's it.
So let's talk about that a little bit. So do you guys think it is possible in this day and age to be a Christian, quote unquote, and a Democrat, and why? Or a never, in this case, in this era, is a never Trumper. Is that something you can do?
Well, I don't think you have to be any party to be a never Trumper. But if I told you I had a good answer for this question,
yeah.
First of all, if you're a Christian, you shouldn't be on a side, period.
That's normally, I mean, truthfully honest with you, that's normally my stance as well.
That's just the real, because both sides, and I'm gonna say this truthfully, both sides of the aisle have anti-Christian policies.
Oh, for sure.
All right. Okay. And for any Christian to take a side to say, I'm on red or I'm on blue because of, then that means you're ignoring the other side and what their anti-Christian policies are. So if you're a Christian and you're a Republican because, well, the Democrats support abortion and they support homosexuality, then you're siding with the side that promotes greed, promotes hatred, promotes, all the other stuff that suppresses society, which we literally
how we treat immigrants.
Yeah.
Which scripture is very clear about.
Right. I mean, there's scriptures that condemn both sides' policies.
Oh, for sure.
So, and if I'm going to say this, like, quite frankly, today's Christian is lazy because
at least in America, right?
Well,
at least in America. Yes.
At least in America. Because here's the thing, and I'm not a Democrat or a Republican. I'm independent. I weigh the candidates and I vote on who I think will keep me safe and keep me providing for my family. So to say that I'm a Democrat, I'd be lying. To say I'm a Republican, I'd be lying. I'm right in the middle. I'm an independent. But
hold on. So Noble, you went and got 2 independents? Is that?
I guess so. That's who showed up, man.
Well,
that's who showed up.
I argued the Democratic side this election.
Okay.
And here's why. And here's why I'm saying that today's American Christian is lazy. Because to legislate morality means that you don't have to work for it. And if you're calling yourself a Christian, that means that if you're a Christian, you're voting for the Republican side this particular election cycle. You're voting for the government to do your work for you, to outlaw this, to outlaw that. And if they outlaw this and it doesn't happen, that means you don't have to minister to that person. Now, the trade-off to that is we see now that everybody was like, oh, Project 2025 isn't real. Oh, it's just as real as it gets. And they going through like an eighth of their playbook right now. And so, yeah, they are the Republican side is against homosexuality. Republican side is against abortion. But in them trying to outlaw all these things, you missed your opportunity to talk to that young lady who is going through that valid decision of whether to keep her baby or not. You missed that opportunity to minister because now you don't have to do it because it's illegal in most of these states. And now she has to either break the law, find somebody to break the law, or she goes through with it, whatever. And you miss out on that piece of ministry right there. You miss out on the ministry of somebody who's struggling with their sexuality and telling them what the Bible says based on love of how you should handle that. You're allowing the government to legislate that for you so you don't have to do it. And I'm speaking strictly to any Christian evangelicals who vote for the Republicans for that very reason. That is your job to convince those people to not make the decisions that they're making. It's not the government's job to legislate that. If you're allowing the government to legislate that, you're letting them do your job for you.
So it's kind of that principle when you say that, right? The biggest thing that Republicans talk about all the time is small government, right?
It's small government.
So you're basically what you're saying is government is controlling all these issues rather than making it small where we can kind of control things on our own.
And so you get into levels of behavior modification, right? Where, Christ is ultimately after the heart, not necessarily after behaviors, right? And so I definitely agree with a lot of what Andre is saying. I wanted to say crazy one, but I guess I can say
It's
crazy
there in
one.
the name.
Yeah.
It's there in the name.
It's in there, man. You can call him
I
that.
still, I guess I agree on a lot of what Crazy One is saying in that it is a little lazy and it is a little uncaring in the sense that it doesn't force you to go out and love your neighbor and or to make disciples, right? Or even just to meet people where they are, right? Meet people at their needs, look beyond their faults and see their needs, right? All the things that we are taught as Christians to do. So yeah. I'm right there with Dre for the most part with that as an independent, as a Christ follower. As for somebody who, I think we used to say back then, we ain't from around here. You know what I mean? This isn't where I put my flag in the ground. The good old earth and or the US of A for that matter. I have a higher king in which I, live to and stand to, and I expect that when I die, I will go, quote unquote, home. We can talk about new heaven and new earth and all that stuff, but anyway, all
You
that
want a
to be
brand new
said,
topic right now, huh?
it was right.
We gotta settle this right quick.
All that to be said, I just a little bit about myself. I've probably voted conservatively majority of my life. But I am indeed a never Trumper. I can't bring myself to do that. I can't bring myself to do that.
Okay, well, let me throw a monkey wrench in this real quick. So, do you think there's anything that Trump has done, whether it be through, I don't know, through this administration, through the previous administration, through the campaign? Is there anything that he's done that you guys would agree with?
I would say yeah. Like I said, I'm just because I don't trust him, his character, his integrity as an individual, doesn't mean that everything he's done is just nonsense, right? That's fine. I'm even actually there's a lot of bold things that have happened even via just the last month or two that I haven't quite slammed the door on. I'm just kind of watching. You know what I mean? Like, okay, what's what's going to go with that, or what you say, what's going to happen with that. But no, I mean, there's definitely we could talk about a good amount of money that and my things will be black issues in this particular time, but a good amount of money that Trump has quote unquote dedicated or given to certain levels of HBCUs and stuff like that, or a great deal of pardons and whatnot that have gone to certain known peoples or whatever the case may be, even though some people could say that those were power moves as well. So, like I said, I'm not going to say the guy doesn't do anything right. I will say that I don't trust him, period. You know what I mean? I don't trust the character of the man by any means. And when I say don't trust the character of the man by any means to vote for him, what I'm telling you is I don't trust the character of the man enough to leave him in the house with my children. That's what I'm telling you. That's how much I don't trust this guy. And I think he only thinks about himself. Does that mean that everything he does is wrong? No. I just don't really trust the motive or the integrity or the character of the guy at all.
Gotcha. Crazy one.
So I'm gonna give you a little agriculture lesson real quick.
You from the city though, right?
Yeah, I'm from the city. For people who hunt like big game like tigers and stuff like that, you can't just up and run and attack a tiger, right? So they would use this trick where they would freeze a knife in blood, right? And then throw it to the tiger and let the tiger lick the blood. And while they're licking the blood, as the blood melts around the blade, right, they'll start licking the blade and start cutting themselves. And that if it gets deep enough, it'll cut their tongue to the point where they bleed out, they pass out, and they can get their prey. That is what I feel what Quote's saying, how he was doing certain things for the black community. That's what he's doing. All right. Here, I'm gonna give you something that makes you say, hey, he's doing something great. All right. But at the same time, he's doing something over here that's literally killing us. I'll take an example when he did the addressing the Congress, which was supposed to be the State of the Union, and he brought that little kid up with the brain tumor and made him a Secret Service agent, right? At the same time, they're cutting off funding for cancer research, right? How does that make sense? You can't be cutting funding and firing people who do the work that could save that little kid's life, but then you hold up the little kid. See what I did? And he's a kid of color. You know what I mean? You can't do that. So, like, even if Trump does something like, okay, here's a perfect example. I am even in my progressive industry, I am not for trans athletes in women's sports. Right?
Obviously.
Right.
If you were born a male, your muscle density, your everything is meant to be greater than that of a female. So
regardless of what you do.
Regardless of what you do.
Yeah.
So, and if you're training for the same sport, of course you're going to have that edge. So, although I don't care how you live your life, that's between you and God. And if we ever have the conversation, you know, I can give you my perspective, you can give me your perspective, and I'm here to listen. Bible teaches us to love, not to condemn, right? So, but in that particular instance, I do disagree. Trans athletes should not be in women's sports in that way. Now, what happens is they put a bill, the Republicans put a bill in to say, okay, we're going to outlaw this. But then in that same bill was a requirement that girls have their genitals checked to make sure. So
a birth certificate won't suffice?
No.
What do they think? You could give them a fraudulent birth certificate? Is that
yes? So they're like, you know, if you're signing up for any high school or collegiate thing, you have to have a genital check in order for you to be verified. Because if you remember the Olympics and the girl from Iran, or was it Iran?
Yeah.
Right?
No, it wasn't. It was one of those countries out there. Though.
Yeah, but it was somewhere in the Middle East. I want to say.
Yeah, it was somewhere in the Middle East, where is literally a Eastern death Europe, penalty for you to be gay or trans, right? And they're sitting there saying, "Well, she's a man. She's a man." Like, no, look at her country. They're not going to do that. But what happened was the Democrats voted it down because of what they call the devil in the details.
Well, hey, can I throw something out there real quick? Now, I mean, that's a decent thought, but guess what, though? At the same time, before you compete in any type of sporting competition, you have to have a physical. Right? So they're going to check that area anyway.
No, so is that the case? I don't know. I mean, as a guy, I mean, I played sports most of my life in high school and all the way up to high school. I don't remember there being. I remember the cough test, but I mean that happened like once. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like outside of that, this was not a regular.
That wasn't for sports. That was.
I
don't even think that was
maybe
for sports.
It's state to state then, right? Because in Kansas, they check for everything.
So
yeah, physicals in here don't have. Physicals in VA don't got nothing to do with touching your joint.
No, right. Check.
So I have two student athlete daughters. Okay. And I was present for all of their sports physicals. Not once was it required for dad to step out the room and for them to pull their pants down. Not once. So,
that's interesting.
So that's not a thing. Like verification of if you're a male or a female was not a requirement in a sports physical. Not when I played sports in school, not when my daughters are playing sports in school now. In Connecticut, they do not allow they don't allow trans females to run in females events. So my daughter's in track, and I went to one of our track meets, and there was a trans kid there, and that trans kid ran with the males. And I'm like, okay, good. So we're doing that. All right, I'm cool with that, because my daughter's events are hammer throw and weight throw, and like, yo, if I see a dude with a wig on and a hammer throw against my daughter, I'm raising hell, because yo, like, he's naturally,
that's a competitive edge,
right?
It's an obvious competitive edge,
right? So
here's the biggest thing with from my perspective as well, because I never hear anybody talk about this part for the most part, but think about, do trans men have that same advantage in men's sports?
No,
they don't. You never hear any biological woman becoming a trans man and killing it in men's sports. Never.
It doesn't happen. It can't happen, because they don't, regardless of what you call. Now, like acting, I know a couple trans male actors
who different.
Right. Exactly. It's not a competitive edge. You know what I mean? So, like I said, in that one, I don't care. Do your thing. That's between you and God. But my whole point about that is that when the legislature hit, there were devils in the details that were like, no, we're not going to do this, because they put out, the Republican side will put out, the Democrats shut it down. They don't want tax on tips, and they don't want this one, that, because the tax on tips was another thing that the Democrats voted against, but it wasn't tax on tips. There was another piece of legislation that was in that bill that would hurt the American people. And they were saying, no, we're not going to do that for the sake of tax on tips. We're not going to let you check our daughter's genitals for the sake of saying you won't let trans athletes compete. And if it was just that alone, I know there are quite a few Democratic legislators that will vote against having trans athletes in women's sports. But because
I was shocked about that.
Yeah, but that's the thing. What I would urge people, your listeners and watchers, to do is, when you see those bills come up, go and read the bill in its entirety, because you'll see what they want to do is, and I hate this. And if you're a Republican Christian, I'm sorry, but the Republicans literally want to sow seeds of division. They don't want to tell you the whole truthful side of what's going on. You have to go and research it yourself, and they're banking on you not going and researching it yourself. So if you go and read the bill, you'll see that there's a money line for this, there's a rule line for that, but they'll say they don't want you to have tax on tips. Like, no, that's not what they're fully saying. They saying, yeah, we want to not tax tips, but then we want to tax you here, or you're going to owe us here, or you're going to have show findings for this here. And that's the thing. That, and again, this is on both sides, because what's happening with this Doge thing is what you're seeing the result of. They're picking out the devils in the details and not telling you what the bill that the devil in the details was attached to. They're just telling you, oh, they're spending $8 million on a hammer and $12 million on a toilet seat. Independence Day, if you didn't get that reference. But but those things were attached to a bigger bill that did more good, but they say, hey, let's allocate money to this, and this, and this. And all those things passed the House and the Senate to get those money lines. So if Doge is really, doing their job or their task, right? Both sides are to blame. But again, I'm moving forward.
That's what I think all the time, and that's why I'm an independent too, because I know there's both sides that don't tell us the whole story.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like I know there is. A shout out to my guy Justin checking in, man. He talked about his son had to do one of those checks too. So there's some confirmation quote from VA, man. VA They just do the little cough test. Anyway.
Yeah. So, and like I said, my son hasn't had to do, and he's been in sports his whole life. He hasn't done and had to do any kind of general checks. He's played high school ball, plays college ball now. So that's interesting.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Hey, I want to bring it back to a lot of the legislative type stuff. Like even before Trump took office, right? Because I'll tell you like this: I grew up in the church, right? Fairly, I guess you would say a mainline Christian church. So I grew up. That could either be those mainline churches could either be liberal or conservative homes. I grew up in a more liberal home, so that was kind of my exposure. And then when I got, I guess, born again or saved back in 2000, my whole world was blown. Honestly, I didn't think Republicans cared at all about anybody, right? And then I started to see the world different. And then obviously because of that worldview, my worldview started to change, and I became more independent because of my background. Because I knew that, listen, man, the Democrats do care. Now I see that Republicans care too. Then we hit this weird patch, this weird era, right? I think it was probably in the Obama administration where you had the incident that went down in Ferguson, Missouri. Was it Michael Brown?
Yep.
Was that it? That Michael Brown situation seemed to turn the tide, right? For me, at least, it started to bring out this division about race. Like I thought, man, I thought at some point we're gonna squash everything. All right. I was like, oh man, but this incident seemed to turn the tide though.
Well, I think it actually started with Trayvon.
Oh yeah, Trayvon
It
Martin. That's
started
right.
with
That's right.
Trayvon, but
Trayvon.
I'll tell you where it really started when Mitch McConnell went up on live TV and literally said, "Our job is to make Obama a one-term president." AKA, we not letting this beep run our country. And what happened in that instance was where Obama had this awesome agenda, the Republicans made it their purpose because they controlled the House and the Senate at the time when Obama was in office. At least for the first term. They shot every bill or every proposal or every initiative that he had that he campaigned on. They shut it all down in hopes of saying, "See, he lied to you." All right. And then you had the obvious military mistakes that happened, but the racial divide started at that point when they made it perfectly clear we're not letting this black man be successful in this office. And then that's where Trump came in during the campaign. Where's his birth certificate? He's not that. Started spreading lies that he's Muslim because his middle name is Hussein and all this other stuff. So that is where really the Trump and McConnell started all those rekindling those racial flames.
Plus, 9/11 being fresh on our minds at that time too. Still, I guess.
No, that was
the
era.
Well, no, because you said
that was Bush.
Name, right?
Bush,
that was Bush era.
It was Bush era, but like it was still fresh off of it. We're talking about 2001. Obama comes to the scene late in the 2000s, right?
2008, right?
2008. So that's only 7 years later. So there's still some type of hostility toward radical Islam, right?
Right.
And so when people start saying Barack Hussein and like emphasizing that Hussein, of course, you have Saddam Hussein, right? I think that sparked some things too, man. Where you started really seeing a lot of this hate, because obviously not every Muslim represents the radical side. You know what I mean?
Right.
So I just thought it was kind of an interest. There's kind of been an interesting pool, especially like when obviously you guys remember when Lecrae first came out, Reach Records. Everybody was loving them, right?
Until
What, church closed? when Lecrae started speaking out against, these ills that were going on in, in the black communities, in particular police brutality. I think that's where kind of the divide
So
started, man.
I would actually push back a little bit on that too.
Okay.
Of course, like I said, Trayvon Martin, Mike Brown, yada yada yada. But even if you go back and listen to a lot of Christian hip hop before Trayvon Martin and before Mike Brown, black men in those spaces were still speaking on race.
Mm-hmm.
It just wasn't a hotbed. You feel what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It was something that was easily overlooked. You know what I mean? But then when things became so polarizing and political, that's when, people were literally getting their shows canceled because they said something about, somebody in a song, something they would have said anyway years ago. But, I like to, I blame, I believe the issue at the end of the day becomes Barack. I don't blame Barack, but I believe he was the issue. I think I don't think everybody was ready for a black president. I just don't think everybody was ready for that.
Didn't Tupac say that?
Yeah. Tupac said he'll never see him. Yeah, and he didn't. But I think everybody wasn't ready for that. When I say everybody, obviously, I'm talking a certain segment of America. And I think it was obvious that, because, Trump started speaking out really there. Because we still had McCain bow out gracefully. Everything was still where it needed to be. At the end of the day, I believe.
Even stuck up for him on the campaign trail.
Yeah, for sure. Shouts out to McCain. Rest in peace, for real. But I just don't think everybody
Trump
was ready.
said some things about McCain too.
He did.
I remember that.
And that's why I'm a never Trumper, right? At the end of the day, I've been praying that, and I've been saying I can't wait till the Republican Party takes their party back, because this MAGA thing is a whole nother ballgame. I've never seen.
That's my big and no, because you've been an antagonist in a few of my posts during campaign season. Yeah. I was like, I want to unfriend you so bad, but I'm not going to do that. Because in the history of politics in this country, no one, and I mean no one, has been able to get away with what Trump has been able to get away with in any presidency that we have been alive for.
Hold on. Has anybody else even tried? Nobody else even tried.
We can't speak for your Andrew Jacksons and all that, because there were slave owner presidents and all that good stuff. So we don't know what those campaigns were like, if anything. But from the blatant sexism, all right, the whole grab him by the coochie thing, all right, the outright overt racism that he shows towards people who are not rich and white, all right, that would never fly in any other presidential campaign. It would never. Half the stuff that he says, half the stuff that he does would never. And for me, and what frustrates me about this is that there are Christians who are backing this dude. And I can understand if it's just, the rich people, the ones who make over $350 a year and everything like that, if they're the ones backing them, the business owners and everything like that. But you have people who straight up preach from the Bible, right? And literally will overlook. This dude went to Liberty University and completely butchered the scripture, and everybody's clapping for him like, yep.
Hey, 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians, remember that?
Yeah, I remember 2 Corinthians.
2 Corinthians. I was like, oh my God.
That was wild.
And then you go to modern day, you go to this campaign, all right, and this dude starts selling a Bible with the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence in the Bible. Doesn't it not say that you're not supposed to add to or take away from the Bible? And Christians are eating it up.
Yeah.
Wait,
but he knows how to sell himself. That's the thing, man.
No. I mean, he knows how to sell himself. He's bulletproof. Physically and literally bulletproof.
As a Christian,
well, I got a couple things that's since we brought me into the conversation and some of the posts that I had back then, man. It's always been our love anyway, man. But there's a couple things that I was thinking of during the election season. Number one, I thought, first of all, I think Kamala was put into the fire. She should have never been in that fire. I think the Democrats put her in a bad position. Right. I really didn't think she had a chance. First and foremost, because of that. Secondly, I look at some people, right? Some people vote for different reasons, right? And I think that's something we can't take for granted, right? Even though Trump is who he is, I mean, we've been talking about him the last 10 minutes or so about what he's done, what he done, what he hasn't done, et cetera, et cetera. But I mean, people do vote for different reasons.
For sure.
We
found out last year. We found out people ain't pro-choice out here. That's for sure.
Right.
People ain't pro-choice. Like I think the Democrats really failed in a sense that they thought that was going to be a huge ordeal. Like abortion. They're trying to stop a woman's right to choose. Yada yada yada.
Wait, stop. Wait,
people was like they don't care.
Quote, I gotta push back on that.
Okay.
The subject was not abortion. The subject was choice, right? And let me explain why. Because even Kamala said it. It's not about getting rid of the baby because of irresponsibility. It's about being able to make the choice because of health reasons. Other people saying abortion because what it was a clapback for people who opposed it. And then you had said, well, if you want an abortion, come to our state. And it's like the message got messed up because of the ignorance of it. It's a double-sided ignorance. All right. The actual bill or the actual law is about the regulation of a woman's body, but the other side made it about one thing and one thing only. And then once they made it about the one thing and the one thing only, then the other side battled them about that one thing only. And the actual truthful matter of the subject was lost, all about abortion. And I think what happened there was that the Democratic side never regained the purpose or the meaning of the original message, which was if something happens, right, that can be caught early, that can save a woman's life by abortion, then it should be allowed to have that choice. But it was never presented that way.
Yeah, I don't like I said, I think and of course when it comes to messaging, I mean, unfortunately Democrats are just absolutely horrible on messaging. And so, it's very easy and it happens a lot of times for the Republican Party to take a word or take something that means something else and totally make it something else. And the Democrats have a hard time with messaging and things of that nature. So ultimately, there was a push. There was a push for that choice. And again, based on the results, I'm not going to say nobody cared, but nobody cared. You know what I'm saying? Now, with that being said, of course, we know statistically most abortions are not, when I say most, we're talking about majority abortions have absolutely nothing to do with somebody at the cost of like life or something like that.
Yeah.
Like the woman was going to die or something like that. Most have nothing to do with any kind of rape or incest or any of that stuff. That's not what most do, right? We're talking less than 5%,
Very
and of
small.
course I'm being generous, right? When I say 5%. And so yeah, I mean, hopefully there is a common sense situation where people could make a allowance for those very, very small. And I said 5% to be generous. We know it's a lot less than that type situations. But yeah, unfortunately, when you don't have the messaging and you have a problem with that, listen, there's no ways to shortcoming them. Democrats got mollywopped in this last election.
They did.
Mollywopped.
They did. Do you guys like do you feel like the reasoning, because what I heard from a lot of Democrats was that the reasoning was because of racism and misogyny. Do you guys agree with that statement?
Yeah.
I could rock with that. Hindsight being 2020, I could rock with that. I mean, listen, the white woman that everybody liked didn't beat Trump. How we think the black woman that most of the cats didn't like was going to beat Trump?
I mean, it's evident. It's evident because of what they're trying to do now with rolling back DEI and rolling back civil rights and all that. It's evident that's what it was. And I am in particularly mad at most of the black men that I've been seeing trying to tear Kamala down.
Would you say most though? Would you say that's not most? You don't see that mostly, do you?
Yeah. Look at the
I think there's
demographics.
So when I say most, what I'm saying is you don't believe that majority of black men bashed Kamala or voted against her.
45.
I don't know that's not correct. It's not. I know it's not correct. That majority of black men voted Democrat in this last election. Was there a widening gap?
There's a huge gap
before.
this time.
Yes, there was a huge gap,
and among Hispanic voters too,
and of course Hispanics and whatnot. But majority black men.
The one I'm really mad at.
What's that?
The Hispanic voters. Oh, I do not know what y'all was thinking. Yeah, because some of y'all now crying because y'all family members are in some internment camp now. And that's the dead honest truth.
But I think the biggest, I know this, we're kind of getting off track as far as being Christian and stuff like this and what it has to do with it. We can get back to the immigration issue.
Right.
Because actually, my mom actually helps out a lot of those immigrants that cross the border and help them with housing and taking care of them. And what she's a native of Colombia, so she has a passion to help out. But would you guys agree that in the Biden administration, there are way too many people that just kind of flooded into the country, like without going through the proper channels? I mean, I think that's a major problem when you have people coming into the country like that.
I would say this. Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
So and again, there's a little naive. There's a naivete, whatever, concerning this with me. I don't see, and of course, I mean, obviously, if I could see where it could be an issue. This issue has not touched my life or the lives of anybody I know. Immigrants are not stealing my job. Right. You know what I'm saying? I've never, I don't, I mean, I'm not trying to be funny, but a lot of times immigrants are doing the hardworking jobs that to most people,
nobody else wants,
white or black, don't really want to do. Whatever the case may be. Number one. Number two, the process of becoming, my late wife was from Brazil. The process of becoming a U.S. citizen is a very long and expensive process. I'm not saying
to be a legal permanent resident. That's doesn't require as much, right?
Doesn't require as much to be to be a permanent resident. I mean, there's still time frames to this.
Right.
There's still time frames normally to everything until you become.
You gotta get into the lottery to be selected to come, or you go through the proper gates through asylum. If you're coming for asylum reasons, yeah.
Yeah,
I
but
know some
all those,
stories about the asylum too. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
wild.
But a lot of times, I mean, that's either a very lucky, once again, as we speak of lotteries, or but the time frame is normally it's a long process and it's
Right.
an expensive process. I'm not saying that people shouldn't have processes or have to go through processes, but a lot of people speak on the process and they've never been through the process. They have
Hmm.
no idea what it means to go through that process of becoming an actual citizen of the United States of America. It's a hard
Hmm.
process. It's a long
Right.
process. It's an expensive process. I say again. So do you think that there should be some kind of border, protection, whatever the case would be? Yeah. I mean, I could see where too much of anything could be problematic. I can also say again, I have not seen where that has touched my life as an average American male, where most things in America, first and foremost, affect my people. I would say. I say that loose. What I'm saying is, if it's causing white people a problem, it's already normally caused black people a huge problem. You feel what I'm saying? When it comes to something like that.
You
So
want to know why, quote? It's because the issue that they ran on was a less than 1% issue. They ran on the issue of people are coming over and they're raping your daughters and they're killing your
and
wives
you're
and they're
eating your dogs and
eating your cats and dogs and they're
right.
flooding the country with fentanyl and everything like that. And when you go look at the data of the amount of illegal immigrants that were caught up in that type of gang activity, it was less than 1% of those who were coming over. Now, that being said, guns are illegal in Mexico. So where are the guns coming from? They're not coming from Mexico. All right. The big drug suppliers, all right, are native to this country. I used to work for Purdue Pharma back in the mid 2000s, and Purdue Pharma had ended up with a multi-million-dollar lawsuit because they're the ones who created oxycodone. that's not that's a very bad and leaked out into the street drug that
Yeah,
did
it's a
not
bad one.
come from Mexico or Canada, right? So we're not we're again the whole misdirection, the icicle, the icicle with the blade inside of it. That's what they're running on, and again, that's my biggest beef is that they are hoping. Now, this is a crazy stat here, but the majority of people who voted Republican in this term are not their education limit is high school, right? The Republican Party is feeding off the uneducated, the ones who do not do the research. And they're telling them that this is the problem, but we're not telling you where the real problem is coming from. We're hitting a pain point. And bringing it back to the topic about being a Christian and a never Trump, this is concerning to me because if you are a Christ professing person and you do the actual research and find out that the person that you're rooting for is literally lying and you're still sticking up for them, like at what point did we lose our spirituality or our God-given discernment for new church pews, so to
Yeah, and
speak?
I
I
Go
mean,
ahead, quote.
yeah, I hate to say it, but there's I mean, it's unfortunate, but there's a especially with Americans, Christianity is so woven in the culture that in my
Mm.
opinion, there are a lot of people who believe they're Christians and they're just not. They're just not. It's just if they and maybe they went to church every week. Maybe it's just it's so woven in the culture. You just start believing you're something you're not. You know what I mean? You never gave your life. You never studied. You never had a relationship. You just yeah. I'm a Christian. What you mean? I'm a red blooded American. You feel what I'm saying?
But then
so that's where you put
word that Christ said about inviting your neighbors and feeding the hungry, and as you've done to the least of these, you've done unto me. But yet we're oppressing the least of these.
Listen, I think we've got to be very careful. I mean, I'm not one who says that this kind of thing can't be policed when it comes to immigration and the amount of people that are coming over. I just think we have to be very careful about how that's handled, how it's spoken about, all that stuff when it comes to humanity, Imago Dei. There's plenty of scriptures about how we should treat the alien and the immigrant, and we don't follow that. That's not what, unfortunately, we see from our more, I would say, conservative brothers and sisters, unfortunately.
Yeah, so that basically it kind of goes back to sometimes culture influences your faith, right? Instead of the other way around.
Yeah.
Listen, as long as
I think that could happen on both sides, by the way.
Oh, for sure. Oh, without a shadow of a doubt.
As long as abortion and homosexuality is illegal, it's fine with them. That's the sad part. That's the sad part. Like, and again, that goes to me saying that the American Christian is lazy, because those are the people you're supposed to be ministering to, not allowing the government to legislate. And that's the thing. This country was literally built on religious freedom, because freedom is all up and down what Americans believe. Freedom of speech, freedom of the press, the right to bear arms, all this other stuff. Yeah, that's all right and good. However, the Statue of Liberty says, give us your poor and your tired. What did Jesus say that was very similar to us? Come
to me.
Lay your burdens on me,
and I will give you rest.
I'll give you rest.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden we forget about that, to the point where the French was like, "Yo, give us our statue back, because y'all not embodying that anymore." And now,
yeah, that was kind of petty, but
I mean, it was petty, but the answer,
just like the Gulf of America was petty too. Like, that was super petty.
It's very
So I would love for us to finally one day get away from this petty politics.
Yeah,
this petty politics is wild, and that's what I thought. Being able to see Trump not in office again, I thought we'd be closer to doing that. So now, of course, there's another 4 years, and I'm hoping that, I just don't see anybody else necessarily that has his charisma on the Republican side. I mean, fully embodies Trump. That would be another candidate that the MAGA audience would get behind. Hopefully, I don't know. I just, I would love to see the Republican Party take their party back.
I think really the issue is, and this is my opinion alone, is that we become so radicalized on both sides of the political line. There's going to be this constant push and pull. So whoever has the authority in office, in Congress, and in the White House, wherever, legislator, in the Supreme Court, wherever it may be, wherever there's a majority, and if it swings to one way or the other side is going to try to take control and police it, right, to whatever side they want or whatever issues they want. And I think that's the problem. I think we saw that with Trump the first time. I think we saw that with Biden when he took over. He pushed it all the way over, and that's why people were so mad. And I think that's why they voted for Trump.
And sometimes
because it became so polarizing.
Yeah,
sometimes yank it all the way back. Yeah,
there is, and since Obama, unfortunately, again, not his fault. It's just I don't think that a certain segment of America was ready for it. Since Obama, there has been a pendulum swing.
Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
Big
it's just what it is. Big, you know what I'm saying? As soon as he got in, of course, certain people weren't ready. They were meeting. They were serious. Republicans were serious. Like, he can't have another term, and we have to have a plan to utterly destroy anything that he puts in place. I mean, there was a huge pendulum swing. Yeah. All right,
and that's the thing.
So then there's another pendulum swing to get it back there, and then now there's another pendulum. And so there's just it's not Obama's fault. It's just
Hey, what's
There's a
that?
certain segment of America that wasn't ready.
Hey, quote, what's that ride at Busch Gardens that does that? You know what I'm
What's
saying? I
that?
forgot what it's
I think
called.
you're talking about, yeah, I think it's Da Vinci's Cradle or something
Yeah,
like
the
that,
Vinci,
or the
yeah, the
Battling
Vinci,
Ram or something.
yeah,
Yeah,
battering ram, the battering
yeah.
ram. You gotta look that up, crazy one.
I've
The
been there.
battering ram. That's how America is. Except we're at the top of the battering ram. You know how you swings
Mhm.
way
Right,
down.
where that joint could almost go
Yeah,
over.
yeah.
Let's see.
You feel like you up, man. Like this is the end of my life, and then it
Man,
comes back down. Yeah, it's
I've
wild,
been
man.
there. Not
I
no,
was
but
scared to ride that ride, man, for
the
years.
the problem is with the Christian common sense,
Yeah.
and I think that's what's going on. And unfortunately, I think, and I have to bring it here. I think the inner. Y'all remember that movie, The Kingsman?
I didn't see that. Who starred in it?
yes, that was the almost like a 007 type
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah,
Yeah.
what?
So
Tell me
Manners
about
our
make men.
hero went into a church, and Samuel Jackson was the villain of this, and he had this little device that it emitted a silent sound wave that brought the truth out of your brain, like the truth and aggression out of you by emitting the sound wave, and they did it through the cell phones. And so he was at a Southern Baptist church where they were preaching the gospel.
Oh,
And then,
I do remember that.
and then it went from preaching the gospel into preaching racism and saying that how God didn't want the black man in this, and we got to get rid of the homosexuals, and all. That's literally happening right now in our churches. Where I mean, I know y'all all seen the thing with Swagger and calling out the black church for supporting the Democratic Party, and I'm sitting
I
here
didn't
like,
see that, but I don't doubt it.
oh, it was
Actually, I missed that altogether. Yeah,
because he went after the Kojic. He went after Kojic, and Kojic went back at him, and they had this whole thing going on or whatever. This was during the election season. But my thing is, the Christian common sense is, yeah, we don't support this policy, but we also should not be supporting these policies. And when you're looking at an administration that is vowing to lift up its top 1%, and yet the rest of us, the people who are not making 350 or more a year, are suffering because our gas prices are going up, our grocery prices are going up, our cost of living is going up, and we just can't afford it. It's a shame that if you're making $150,000 a year, you're still almost living paycheck to paycheck. You know what I'm saying? Up where I live in Connecticut,
You definitely can't live off of that.
No, we're like the third richest state, but with one of the largest poverty populations in the country. You know what I'm saying? Because people say, you look at Connecticut in the movies and TV, rich white people everywhere, right?
Yeah.
But you go to New Haven, Hartford, and Bridgeport. Those are three of the largest cities in Connecticut, and those are the poorest populations in the state. The rest of the state, we outnumber the rest of the state by a whole lot. And for a 1-bedroom apartment, you're looking at anywhere between $1,900 and $2,500 a month. Like,
you know what the excuse is that for the Republican side, right?
Oh, because we're lazy and we don't work.
I'm not saying that. It's because you're run by Democrats.
Oh no, that's not
those major cities. That's what they'll say, right?
Let me get on that for a second.
Yeah.
Let me get on that for a
second. Let's go.
Because we talking about the Christian common sense.
Right.
I live in a city where there are anywhere between 5 and 10 churches on a 3-block radius. Okay.
Sounds like America.
Yeah, sounds like same here. Yep.
Right.
Yeah.
Most inner cities are like that. Most inner cities are like that. Why? Because we don't come together.
Right.
Okay. Nobody has swallowed their pride enough to say, you know what? We need to link up with this with this church, and we need to link up with that church, and we need to come together, and we need to take our blocks back. On those same three block radius, which was 5 to 10 churches, you'll see liquor stores, drug dealers, violence, crime, gangs, you name it, it's there, right?
Yep.
So, what the Democratic Party does in this instance and says, you keep us in office, we will give you this. And it decentivizes people to actually get ahead. And so that's a thing that I've been saying, because I am an independent. I am not red or blue. All right. I don't like the fact that you can stay on welfare for as long as you want. All right. You keep pumping out kids and you keep doing this, whatever. All right. And then you get your money back based on the amount of kids that you got.
Yeah.
You know, I went through a few valleys myself, you know, during C1 radio, after C1 radio, before C1 radio, where we needed EBT assistance. Right? I'm not going on front.
Been there, done that too.
Right? And it was like, with my income alone, it's not enough to take care of my house and then go out and like live life. Like, if I pay my car note and my car note, my house, and my bills, I'm left with maybe $250 at the end of the month. And what am I going to do with that? You know, it takes a full 2-person income of at least $50,000 each for you to be able to live comfortably. So when we went for,
that's depending on how many kids you got.
And it depends on how many kids you got. We went for our we're under Obamacare right now because both my wife and I were are independent business owners and
contractors.
Right. No,
okay.
Because I own C1 Media, which is a full-fledged company. She owns Black Pearl Photography, and we don't make we make enough to sustain. We don't make enough to get ahead. So that means that if we start paying for our own health insurance and everything like that, we're literally going in the red every month. So we had to go to the state and say, hey, we need Husky insurance. That's what Connecticut has. We need the Husky insurance and everything like that. And they took a look at our earnings and everything like that. And they'll say, okay, so you're eligible to get at least $500 in food money every month. All right. You're eligible to get these health services. All right. But in 6 months' time, you have to come and reevaluate. Right. And so for us, if anybody, both of y'all probably know my big announcement from this past week, right? That's going to go away very soon. You know what I'm saying? Because that bracket that I'm going to be in is going to be in a different one. They're going to be like, no, you no longer qualify. Now, here's the nasty.
I got to do that next week.
Yeah.
I'm under the same boat that you are.
So here's the nasty truth about that. Although I will be making more money than I was previously, it's still not enough to sustain this house and everything with just that. I will be making too much to qualify, but not enough to live.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's a flaw with some Democratic policies, is that you're allowed to, as long as you're not working and as long as you're allowed to live. They'll put you on Section 8 where you only got to pay $150 of rent. If you got 5 kids, you getting $2,000 a kid every year for your tax returns, and you get $300 per kid for grocery money and all this other stuff. But there's no incentive for you to get off of that, because the minute you get off of that, you're struggling again.
Right.
And that's you know, when we talking about the Democratic policies and the give and take and the devil in the details. That's what I don't like about the Democratic Party, because they give you on the surface, we are here to help you, but in actual reality, if you don't if you want to help us lower our cost of living, so that way, if somebody's working a $65,000 job, all right, they can live comfortably. It shouldn't take mom and dad to both have to make $200,000 combined to live comfortably. Lower our cost of living. All right, put a time limit on those that receive those benefits. Unless you are disabled, right? And this is I always say I would propose this. You give a person on welfare 2 years, right? We got you. Rent, food, whatever. All you have to do is pay this much. But you either, in the course of these 2 years, you either have to get a job that you can start banking and storing away, or you better be in school to earn a degree or something like that, so that you can get the job that pays you enough to take you off this thing. And if you don't within that thing, you come back in 2 years and reevaluate, and then we put you on some sort of program where you have to. Because what's happening is the discourse that we're feeling right now is because people are taking advantage of Democratic policies, but it's costing those who actually work their tax dollars. So from a Republican standpoint, I can understand what they're upset about with that. But at the same time, this is the United States of America, and we are supposed to be, and again, we're going with the Christian common sense, all right? We're supposed to be taking care of those who can't. That is our whole fiber of being. It's just that we're not having places in place. We're not having policies in place to help people further themselves. We're having policies in place that keep people in their place because it keeps people elected and ran.
Yeah, it's again.
You might hear the argument the other way around too, which is interesting. In other ways, yeah.
Which is the gamut, which is why I just, like I said, I don't blame Christians who vote for the Republican Party. I don't blame Christians that vote for the Democratic parties. When I see people party ride and consider themselves Christians, that blows my mind. Like I said, you could, just the utter my party can do no wrong.
Yeah.
And you're a Christian? Oh my God.
You gotta have common sense. You have to have Christian common sense. So how I felt this election cycle, I don't do the whole lesser of two evils because that's just it's a nonsensical argument. But how I vote is, again, I have a son in the military. He just got promoted to sergeant. I don't want a war breaking out. And I don't want a president in office that's going to side with warlords and dictators. When it comes down to the whole abortion and the homosexual thing, if you call yourself a Christian, get out there and minister to those people, right? Don't let that be the basis of your vote. And then the guy wants to side with Russia and North Korea and all these other places, and then make our friends our enemies, which is what he's literally doing right now. And you got we saw the whole thing with the Ukrainian president.
Zelensky,
when he went in and said, "Yo, I just need the help," and there was like, "Well, you should be grateful, and you should be." What's so Christian like about that?
Well, it's not, but it's not.
But it's not. It's also not Christian, right? I'm not one who's expecting my politics to be Christian either, right?
But that's what the argument is.
Agreement would be, yeah, for those
That's,
who, yeah,
for Christians, for
any Christian evangel, yeah, for
right.
any American.
They want to see a strong president stand up for America. That's when you prioritize America over your faith,
Christian beliefs, and
yeah,
over
your Christian
faith.
beliefs, right?
Yeah. I mean, listen,
from that aspect, right? From that aspect,
that joint should have never been broadcasted on TV. It had no business. It had no business being broadcasted
and
at all.
Biblically speaking, and I've said this to so many people. Biblically speaking, what happened when the Israelites told God, "We don't want you. We want a king."
You got a king.
They got a king.
You got a king. And then you got overran how many times after you had a king?
Yeah. I mean, the king committed suicide, didn't he?
So it's funny because I heard somebody say this and it was so profound to me. They said Republicans want a king, but they don't want a kingdom. And then they said Democrats want a kingdom, but they don't want a king. And so,
hey, look, I'm gonna tell you guys, this is my honest opinion. We only have two choices primarily. That's it.
Yeah.
And I think that's the
two-party system. Yeah.
We had two choices. So, like, I know you were talking about Crazy One earlier. You're talking about the lesser two evils. Not saying that the political parties are necessarily evil in that sense, but that's all we got. It's like you can either have, I played the game today at work, either this or that. He said coffee or tea. I don't like either one. I gotta go somewhere though.
Yeah, well, I get it, but for me, I'd rather have to deal with somebody who has to make a decision about their own lives rather than somebody who's trying to suppress and take over. I mean, Noble, I'm going to be real blunt and honest with you. This past 2 months have been real painful for me. We have to watch Black history get wiped from federal archives. We have to watch civil rights, the policies that my ancestors have fought, died for, marched, got sprayed down with fire hoses, had dogs seeked on them, beat over with billy clubs. And I watched this man sign that 14th Amendment and revoked it. Just a couple of days ago, he literally repealed segregation laws. So, as a Black man living in this country, where if police brutality happens, because it's happened to me on a few occasions, like not even 3 years ago, I posted about a cop that pulled his firearm on me because I made a wide turn at a gas station because I was out of town and didn't know where I was going. And he pulled a gun on me. Right. Yeah. And if people weren't there with their cell phones recording it, we're not having this conversation right now. Because that's how aggressive he was with me. Right?
Yeah.
Those type of people, to him, we'll pardon him. Right? You had an entire insurgent group that he pardoned that literally broke the law and hurt the same police officers that he's trying to protect. But you pardon them. As a Black man, that's scary, man. And like, I understand that there's a lot of people in America that don't see my view on these things. But when you have to fight for what you have, I'm educated in everything that I'm not doing in my life right now. All right. I have a degree in culinary arts. I have a degree in software and network administration. I work in TV. I'm self-taught. Right.
Yeah.
If I'm going up against a person that went to school for broadcasting and doing all this other stuff, right? And I get the job because my work speaks for itself. Because I don't have the credentials on paper, they say I'm a DEI hire. And then by that merit, I would have had my job taken away if I worked for the federal government. We have people in Congress saying that federal employees do not deserve their paychecks. Like, that's literally Marjorie Taylor Greene said that on the Congress stage. Federal employees do not deserve their jobs. Federal employees do not deserve their paychecks. They laid off hundreds of thousands of people, right, that had sustaining jobs, benefits, taking care of their families. But we're supposed to be bringing America in its golden age, right? You're rolling back civil rights. You're rolling back segregation. What golden age are you bringing us to? And this is why I'm frustrated with Republican Christians, because again, the only argument that I've encountered, and you've seen my post during election season, all right. The only arguments that I have encountered is his first term, he kept money in our pockets. All right. He's getting rid of DEI. He's against abortion. He's against homosexuality. All right. Mm-hmm. And then the whole immigration thing. Again, I know people who are crying right now because their loved ones are in internment camps. This has everything to do with common sense. And if you are ignoring your common sense, your natural common sense, and your Christian common sense because you thought you were going to get some cheaper eggs, like your brother, right, your neighbor is suffering right now because they're getting rights literally rolled back on them. And like, I can't. You hear the hurt and you hear the passion in my voice, because if I've experienced it and I'm not a lawbreaker, I'm not, I worked my way to where I am now, and I'm proud of what I've accomplished in my life. But if I'm considered a DEI hire, like I was when I worked at Yale School of Drama, I pretty much was a DEI hire. They didn't have any black men in my department, and yeah, I fit the bill. So yeah, I had a chance. But when I was there and I was running stuff, right? So that doesn't mean just because my skin color is different, my background's different, that doesn't mean that I'm not fit to do the job. But we're in an era right now where the overt racism is taking place right before our eyes. The overt classism is taking place right before our eyes. And these are the values that the Christian Republican voted for. Whether they meant to or not, you didn't listen to what the man said. The one thing I will give Trump, and this is the only credit that I will give Trump, the man is doing exactly what he says he's going to do. And none of it is good. He said he was going to do everything. They put out the document that said, we're going to dismantle education. We're going to tear down the government. They're making our country weaker. Look at our stocks. Look at the stock market. People are losing their retirement money because of what this man is doing. In only 2 months. It's March 19th. Tomorrow makes 2 months. He did all this devastation in only 2 months. Come on. Rant over. I'm sorry.
No, you good, man.
Yeah, I mean,
that's what we want to hear. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah. So, I mean, and again, to me, man, messaging is so important too. And I'm by no means am I going to say I have all the answers, but as I understand it, even the term DEI hire, which they have now fed to us, right? That's really not what it is, unless you're working for specifically to be over DEI implementations. You're not even a DEI hire. It's an affirmative action hire. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
DEI is about culture shifting and changing and inclusion and stuff like that. Affirmative action is getting through the door. But even, like I said, the messaging is so it's I just hate the way
it's just
narratives,
packaged.
and everything's just packed, so and I'm not even gonna just go with the word woke or just all that. Those just bothers me.
That's the first time that word's been used on this podcast today.
This is the first time, right? I just
Right,
hate how certain words have just been kidnapped,
hijacked,
or how they try to merge. How do they try to merge? Even like they're like DEI and affirmative action are not the same.
They're not.
And then of
I was
course,
thinking the same thing. So
but
I'm not on my own thinking that.
They both on day one got repealed.
Well, both affirmative action,
you still have discrimination laws and things of that nature.
Well, affirmative action was in the 14th Amendment, which is what he rolled back on day one.
But affirmative action actually has already been attacked.
He didn't get rid of, like, was it some discrimination? There's some acts on discrimination he never got rid of.
No, he did. He got rid of all. He got rid of all the it's in the 14th Amendment. I should have came with that bill number. But what
I would like to see. I just like to see that because I heard about the DEI but I didn't, as far as like what Quote was saying about affirmative action and anti-discrimination laws and all that kind of stuff. I don't know, man. I haven't seen that necessarily, but I don't see everything at all.
Yeah.
In its entirety, you know what I mean?
I don't know I don't know in entirety what's going on with the 14th Amendment outside of like I said, outside of what's the word I'm looking for? Outside of the whole birthright citizen situation. But but yeah. But even affirmative action, of course, has been under attack, right? It was about a year or so ago when affirmative action was removed from the college process, the college applicant process. Now, I don't know if it's now just been removed from just that process or period. So, and this is just my opinion. I don't, my opinion, my life, my thoughts. I don't need DEI. I've never needed DEI. I could care less about DEI. What I felt like my people did need was affirmative action, right? Affirmative action makes sure that, theoretically you can't just have a good old boys club where, where people are just hiring people that look like them or their friends or whatever the case may be. Right. And people who look like me don't get a chance to get in because they don't know the right people, whatever the case may be, and they're easily passed over. Now, when it comes to actual levels of DEI and getting in and changing the culture and stuff like that, I think it's a nice thing to have. It was not something that I ever felt like I needed and or asked for. You know what I mean? But whatever the case may be.
You see Democrats arguing over DEI issues among themselves, which is kind of wild.
Yeah. But again, it goes back once again to communication and messaging. Properly communicating and messaging what it is we're fighting for, what part of this maybe is needed or not needed. I like the idea of different cultures being taught and whatever the case may be, but it's also something I never needed, right? I
do it yourself.
I knew like okay, for instance, I never needed white people to start celebrating Juneteenth. I never needed that. You feel what I'm saying? There's certain line dances that I liked keeping within the Black community. I'm just saying, so it's yeah. You know what I mean? The affirmative action thing is the thing that I worry about more so than I do the DEI thing. But again,
I agree with that.
Words have been intermingled. Now, the fact that DEI culture or teachings or exposure has upset some people the way that it has, that does also still kind of blow my mind.
Right.
Like, for real, you can't take
CRT
the time
and all that stuff.
Yeah. Well, even that, I mean, once again, another word or or acronym in this case that was totally hijacked. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Black people didn't know what CRT was. We didn't care about CRT. We didn't I say this very loosely, but these are words that have been hijacked. For the most part, a lot of times, unfortunately, by the Republican Party, it would seem, to create levels of division.
Well, you could do a lot of things without using terms too. You don't necessarily need the terms of doing like CRT. I was a teacher for 7 years, right, in the public schools. I taught social studies, right? I didn't say CRT one bit, but some of the stuff that I was teaching would probably be considered CRT. You know what I mean? When I talk about the transatlantic slave trade and how Europeans hijacked Africa and Southeast Asia, right? That was just facts.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like, and I said, look, that doesn't mean you hold it against that white person next to you if you're black or you're Asian, because we had I had a lot of students from Southeast Asia too. Like, you don't hold that against the people right next to you. This is just facts. This is just what happened.
The problem.
So once again, messaging.
Yeah, messaging.
The problem with that is that the hierarchy does not want accountability to be taken for the origins of this country. Right?
Yeah.
And that's the thing. You can teach it, but then once you teach it, you sit there and it's like, wait a minute. So Christopher Columbus did not discover America. As a matter of fact, you know, he did this, that, and the other, and that's not what they want taught. They want the revisionist history, because the history that we learned back in elementary to high school is revisionist history.
Right.
And they don't want they want that history to be American history, but you can't do that, because then the technological advances, the social advances, the economic and industry advances that happened as a result of things that happened can't be celebrated or even recognized without saying, well, the reason why is because of this, you know. So, you know, you say we go with the cotton gin. The cotton gin was invented because, like, well, what was a cotton gin before the cotton gin was invented? Black folk.
They don't want to pick the seeds out of the cotton, right?
Right. So so, you know, you can't teach that. You can't teach that part of history without teaching the actual history. And unfortunately, they're afraid of, as that's what I'm going to say. They're afraid that what you said is going to happen. That history is going to be taught, and little Tommy's going to go home to Dad, did our family own slaves? Like, you know, and they don't like, who's teaching my kid this? And you know, that's what they're afraid of. But the thing is, there has to be a way for that to be taught and used as a cautionary tale, as opposed to a finger pointing method.
That's
you know what I'm saying?
That's it.
That's it. Like,
well, I mean, when we say there's got to be a way, so I don't know what y'all. Okay, so when you say there's got to be a way, like, and then you had even actually said this too earlier, but I felt like that's what I got taught in school. I got taught what it was, and it didn't make me, as a black child in a room of white kids. Maybe, okay, I'm trying to make sure I understand it. So maybe it's because the number dynamics are changing so much. Maybe that's what it is. Because as a black child in a room of nothing but a bunch of white kids, when slavery was taught, it didn't make me necessarily feel any kind of way about the white kids. I probably more so felt some kind of way about myself. You know what I mean? You know,
I guarantee you, quote, that when you were taught slavery in school, it was glossed over.
Well, I mean, no, okay, glossed over, yes, but it also wasn't pretend. Like, I've read stuff in my children's books that are utter nonsense. Like the Indians, like Native Americans. I'm trying to find something. I've seen some ridiculous things in my kids' stuff that just totally didn't portray the truth. I don't feel like I had that as a kid. Was it glazed over? Yes. Did it still make a thing? It did. Now it's revisionist when I see my kids' stuff. It doesn't feel. It's not telling the truth.
The big example is this.
I call it untold stories, man, like untold truths.
But
that thing. I'm sorry, Dre. They give us a piece of history, right? but they didn't give us the whole truth.
Right. And I
You know
think
what I
that's
mean?
the big thing. Like we were taught, I remember we were taught as a kids that the pilgrims came over and they made peace with the natives, and that's how we got Thanksgiving. When in actuality, we know that when the pilgrims came over, they saw land, it was occupied. Give me that. This my bite now, punk.
Right.
You know what I'm
So
saying?
I feel like that's not how I was taught. I was taught the Native Americans made peace with us. I won't talk. I mean, with the Pilgrims, not that
Yeah.
the Pilgrims made peace with the Native Americans. Like
Right.
I was taught in school what happened and how
But
the
that's not what
how they got
happened.
hoodwinked.
It depends on
No,
where you went.
no,
It
no,
depends
no.
on the part of America
Yeah,
that you go
maybe it
to,
does. Yeah.
right? Like,
I was taught that the Pilgrims eventually, just totally, yeah,
I think
totally went
the
ramshot.
people that
I
arrived
did.
from the people that arrived from Europe in the Northeast would probably have a different story than the ones that arrived in the Southeast part of the United States, right? Because they're
Listen,
different tribes and different people groups, right? We
who is
kind of box
history
them in
written
as
by?
a race, but I mean, you got different people groups.
Who is history written by?
Well, yeah, I mean, yeah,
Yeah.
those.
No, the
Uh,
history is written. It's a literal saying. History is written by the victor.
yeah.
Yeah.
So if I
The gold
came
They're going to
over,
give you a point of view. They're going to tell you their point of view.
if I came over and I conquered the land, I'm not
Mhm.
telling you I came over and conquered the land. I pioneered, right? I explored because
Yeah.
Massachusetts, even though we named the state by its original Native American name, okay, when you think of Massachusetts, what do you think? Boston. All right. You think
Boston
of
Tea
Samuel.
Party.
You think of Samuel Adams. You think of
Yeah.
one of the birthplaces of America, but we use the Native American name for the state, and the state was literally taken over. You know what I'm saying? So it's like coming from Connecticut, we were taught, oh, they came over, they saw people there, there was a cornucopia, and now we eat turkey and we say what we're thankful for. They don't tell
Yeah.
us, they don't teach the full story of what happened, and
It's got watered down. Yeah.
very watered
Yeah.
down.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And what's happening now, because I saw this on Fox News, when the host said, so if a teacher or if a school is teaching that Europeans came over and they took over the country and America was built on the backs of slaves, is that Trump said we would defund that school. But I'm like, he just told you what literally happened, and you're telling us that we don't want that being taught. It should be taught, but it should be taught as, again, humanitarian in a humane way that says that this is why we should make efforts to not be this way, because if our ancestor did that and it led to this, then we need to be whatever. That has nothing to do with your parents right now. And there has to be a way to do it. It's a nuanced conversation that needs to be had.
Well, no. What's so interesting about saying what Trump just said last month? He said last month during Black History Month, he said this country was built by Black people. So it's funny, even the double talk, right? To say
Right.
it, but then also to condemn it. It's like, well, what are we talking about here? Yeah,
But I wanted to bring to you, the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and Title VII. That is where your anti-discrimination laws were. Those in the 14th Amendment. That's what Trump repealed. He signed the executive order to repeal that act on day one. So the Civil Rights Act of 1964 is what he repealed, which is basically initiating the affirmative action and the anti-discrimination laws. There are federally there are no more anti-discrimination laws.
Hmm.
So he repealed all of that, which means that, again, if you have somebody like me, and again, I use myself for example, because again, I won't reveal on the podcast what I'm about to get into, but one of the reasons why I got hired in my position was because I'm self-taught and I produce the type of work that I produce, and that I worked for my current company. And they saw the work that I did for my current company, and they said, "And you're self-taught? Wow, we need somebody like you," right?
Mm-hmm.
But if they were to see my resume stacked up against somebody else's resume, I wouldn't get that job. You know what I'm saying? It's like you see me, and then they say, "Okay, well, here's Andre, and here's Tommy. We're gonna go with Tommy." You know what I mean? Even though I did the work, and I'm on my merit-based thing, but the laws preventing or initiating that you have to give someone like me a shot, those laws no longer exist.
But I think even America, I hear what you're saying, but I think a lot of people in America have gotten past that. Just like you just got hired, I think a lot of companies kind of are in their own vein. Like I know we're kind of getting off subject a little bit, but I kind of like, there was the boycott against Target, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like they were like one of the front runners in DEI in the first place.
Then they shouldn't have pulled back their.
I was kind of shocked.
They shouldn't have pulled back their stuff.
Yeah.
But they're already doing it though. You know what I'm saying? Like I was like, that's why I was confused about it. They're already, and they don't need laws and initiatives for them to do what they're doing.
No, they did it because of the laws. Remember, Trump did this on day one.
Right.
And then the companies, so anybody that has a federal contract or a government contract with, right, they would have to abide by those laws that Trump put in place. Right. So if there was any kind of government dealing between Target, Apple,
Apple has federal contracts and they didn't abide.
But because they are public and their shareholders voted against it.
Yes. Yeah.
So they have to do what the shareholders do. But they initially said we're complying. But Target, being a public entity, right? As soon as Trump signed that executive order, they say, "Okay, good. We're rolling back our DEI initiatives," and then that's where they're like, "Oh, okay." So basically, and I want to preface this: DEI don't mean black and white.
Means
DEI is veterans, disabled. You know, it's a whole bunch of
white women benefit more than anybody.
Exactly. That's right. So the thing is, who are your primary consumers at Target? White women.
White people, white women.
White women. The 34 to 45 demographic is their largest demographic. Yeah. And when you're repealing DEI initiatives, I get it. Most of the public saw black people boycotting them. Yeah. But I will say this, it worked. They lost over $1 billion.
But I'm gonna play, I guess, I don't know if I should do devil's advocate with that real quick. I'm gonna say this, but what about the people that are working there?
It doesn't affect them. It can't affect them.
It can't affect them, their paychecks?
Nope.
Because if they're not getting the revenue,
it can't affect their paychecks. It can affect their job loss, right? Yeah, their hours or something.
It can affect their hours, which would affect their paycheck. Because like if they're not bringing enough revenue, they can't put money, they can't put people, to work. They can't put people on their shifts, right?
Wrong.
What? If they lose money, a lot of money?
Hear me out.
Okay.
Hear me out.
Okay. I'm hearing you.
A company at the level of Target, they have an executive branch as well, right? If they start cutting normal people jobs because of the job loss, it's going to be real bad for them because you have the people that are making 6 and 7 figure salaries. They should be the first ones taking the pay cut, not the people down there. If they were to do something like that, right, and not take the loss, right, because you have two options. You can lay people off. You can, or three options. You can lay people off, you can shut down a branch, or you can take the loss, right? If they don't take this loss and they start laying people off, you think that they're gonna be hurting now? They're gonna be end up filing bankruptcy if they do that. And then what's gonna happen is the other chains are gonna pick up on it. So Target was the first one to publicly say we're rolling it back. The boycott happened. They lost over $1 billion. They have no choice but to take that loss. And what they're going to do is they're going to say the loss wasn't because of the boycott. The loss is because the Dow went down or NASDAQ went down. That's what they're going to say because they have to eat that loss.
Yeah.
If they
it's a slippery slope.
It's a slippery slope, but it's really not.
Yeah.
It's really not because what they're recognizing is that the people who spend money at their establishment actually hold the power. And they're realizing that. And so people are like, well, what's that one day going to do? That one day was enough for certain companies to take hits on their quarter. Because if you normally make 10 million, let's say you normally make anywhere between 10 and 20 million a day, right? But then you only made 5 million on a day. That's going to affect your quarter. People are not going to go back and spend extra the next day because they didn't spend on one day. They might spend the same amount on that one day, but on your books, you're going to see a profit margin loss because you lost 20 million on a day that you were supposed to make 20 million. You only make 5 million. That's the whole purpose of Black Friday, and people don't understand that. Black Friday is supposed to be a day where we're going to discount a whole bunch of stuff and everybody's going to come and buy. And because of the quantity of people that come to buy, we're going to make up for what we lost in this quarter. See, people don't understand that about consumer economics, that those things actually do matter. And if those protests, like right now, there's supposed to be a 40-day boycott or something like that with them. If they lose even more money, they're going to understand, okay, we're going to have to do something. Like quote said, Apple they went back on their rollback because the shareholders voted against it. If the shareholders do that for every other corporation, then they can't do it. They're a public entity. The government can't come in and say, you do this or else. They can say, we'll take our government contracts for whatever we had going on. They can say that, but they can't.
Apple also played that smartly. Apple knew its shareholders was going to vote against it. So they're like, Apple was like, okay, well, we don't want to do this. What's a way we can get out of this?
Exactly.
And that's how they did.
What everybody's doing right now. That's literally what everybody's doing right now.
I appreciate you clearing that up. Because when it comes to that stuff, I'm not going to say I'm savvy, man, at all. Not even close. But I have thoughts, and that's about it. My focus is education and getting guys at GEDs, man. So you know what I mean. But yeah, I appreciate you guys jumping on, man. I would definitely want to close out with some final thoughts. So, quote, what you got?
Yeah, no, I mean, I just I go back to the first thing I said. As Christians, I can't get caught up in this politics thing too much. I enjoy the run of of a certain season or whatever the case may be. But we all, of course, and myself included, should probably be more concerned with local elections, yada, 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 boom, boom. Of course, we all know that. But I can't party ride, man. I can't party ride, and I'm never a Trumper. Never Trumper for sure. So, like I said, I'll say the same things I've said all show. I can't wait till the day the Republicans get their party back, and we need to get rid of this petty politics There's got to be a respectability.
It's the battery ram.
To how this works, right? There's got to be a respectability to how this works if we are indeed the United States of America.
Crazy one.
For me, use your Christian common sense. Don't preach something out of Christ's teachings and then be a supporter of everything that is against it. A lot of people are hurting right now, and the last thing they need right now is getting scripture thrown at them, and cherry-picked scripture thrown at them to support your claim. Christ's first commandment was to love God. His second commandment was to love your neighbor as you love yourself. And if you are not showing love to your neighbor, you're not being a Christian. That's just straight up. And if you're doing, as quote said, riding party lines over what your Christ commanded duties are, then you're not a Christian at all. And again, I'm standing 10 toes down on that. If you're a Christian, you're not a Democrat or a Republican.
All right, cool. I agree with a lot of that, for sure. I mean, then like we have 3 independents right here. I know it says the Never Trump, Democrat, and Christian. We're not claiming to be, definitely not claiming to be Democrats, but hey, I like the sides that you guys took, and I think it was, I think that was important because I think people need to hear, both sides to the fence, because they'll hear the other side in another 2 weeks. So definitely want to explore both sides and see what both sides have to say. I feel like, and I'll just tell you the reason why I'm doing this, right? Years ago, I felt like God really revealed to me that I am to be a bridge, to bridge that gap between people, right? And so I take that seriously, man. I want to hear both sides, and I definitely want to do the will of God and what God wants me to do. So I appreciate y'all just jumping in and having this conversation with me. It's definitely appreciated.
Appreciate you having us.
Thanks for having us on, man.
Yes, sir, man. And y'all tuning in. There's a couple people out there tuning in. Justin, Chanel, thanks for tuning in all the way. You guys rode with us, so I appreciate that. If also, man, take a look at some other episodes on Off the Grid. We cover a lot of different things, so that's why I like. I don't want to steer away from anything, right? I'm not going to be afraid to talk about anything. So, again, thanks, fellas. I'll definitely see y'all somewhere in social media land or in text messages or whatever.
I
appreciate you again.
Stay tuned for the day one pick.
Yes, indeed. All right, y'all. Peace.
All right, peace.
All right, now.